Beneath Cape Town's Castle of Good Hope lies a dark secret.
They're tiny rooms, they're dark and cold. And the torture room has a hook at the top of the ceiling with a pulley system to pull people up. And in the room next door, if you have not yet confessed and you hear somebody being tortured, it must have been a very emotional, very scary space. Not a position that you wanted to be in.
In the 1700s, the Cape of Good Hope wasn't just a refreshment station for the ships passing through. It was the centre of governance, where colonial power was administered and enforced.
The seat of government at the time, the VOC, or Dutch East India Company, was settled at the Cape inside a structure that was called Kasteel de Goeie Hoop, the Castle of Good Hope. And one of the things before any sentence could take place was that people had to come here to be questioned until they confess.
In the 18th century Cape, the torture was still allowed, and under the Dutch system of law, you could use torture if you had a reasonable suspicion that the person you were torturing was guilty. You could be tortured until you confessed.
And if you don't confess and they don't have that confession, they can't proceed with sentencing. The sentencing is a whole different story. The Council of Justice decided on the sentencing, and then they would step out onto the balcony outside the house of the governor. It is called the cut balcony, but the cut is actually a Dutch word, de cut. It means seat of governance, the seat of power, because this was the governor's house where the governor and the policymakers of the day gathered. So on that balcony, which is attached to the governor's house, an announcement would have been made.
The castle's grounds once echoed with the cries of the condemned, a place where executions turned justice into public spectacle.
The Leerdam bastion of the castle was a square with a low wall. In the center of the square was the equipment that they would have used to execute whatever sentence were meted out to people found guilty. In Dutch it was called the Justitieplaats, the place of justice, and there would be a hanging rod where people, if they were sentenced to be hung, there were also a wheel, all kinds of equipment that would have been used on people that were found guilty.
And the idea was to give as slow and agonizing a death as was possible. In the 18th century, another little feature of Dutch law was that the authorities were prohibited from spilling the blood of a woman if she was to be executed. So women did not have their heads cut off or their arms or hands cut off, or women are not broken on crosses, but women would be strangled or garroted so that no blood was spilt.
The Council of Policy, who made this decision, would have actually, under a tented structure, they would sit and they would watch the execution of the sentence. The governor's guards would actually form a circle around the square. So it was a public event. This is maybe what people did those days. They came and they witnessed this spectacle in a way, although it is a very sad situation. In some cases, the bodies of the people executed would be left
to rot on a cross in full view of everybody outside of the castle.
As a deterrent to other people in the town, or people coming through the town, that, murder shouldn't happen, theft shouldn't happen, those kinds of things. It was a shocking, today we can't imagine it. But in the Dutch East India Company days, the sentences were very, very harsh.